keeps wondering how to actually use just half of his power. An opponent readies a pitch and warns him to pay attention. The guy throws the ball with full force. Gio spots the ball speeding toward him. He dodges the attack with absolute ease. He keeps trying to figure out how to control his own power. He mutters this to himself while effortlessly dodging every single ball thrown his way. The whole class stares in shock, saying he plays like a professional. The new student is completely insane, especially since he dodges every attack without even moving his legs. He makes the entire second class look like absolute fools. Taigu whispers for him to stop showing off. This is not exactly what he had in mind. Gio gets confused and asks if he is doing it wrong. In that brief moment of distraction, a ball slams straight into his face. The boy who threw the ball gasps for air, completely exhausted. The class panics, thinking the throw was way too brutal. Gio immediately gets a bloody nose, but he just laughs it off and assures everyone he is fine. A friend nudges Hyeji. She points out how handsome the new student is and how naturally gifted he is at sports. Hyeji agrees and notes that he is adapting to the school incredibly well. The afternoon passes. Taigu asks how his first day of school went. He admits that keeping Gio's secret is far from easy, but he reminds his friend to just ask if he ever needs anything. Gio looks down and nods. He realizes that no one is trying to control him here. People are free to say whatever they want. Even in the cafeteria, a person can buy whatever they want as long as they have money. He confesses that this entire experience still feels incredibly strange, but at the end of the day, he genuinely had fun. He knows he would have never experienced this life if he had not met the two of them. He deeply thanks them for everything. Taigu immediately cuts the emotional tension. He tells Gio to stop being so sappy because there is still a lot left to teach him. Somewhere else in the city, some gangsters approach asking if there is any news from the lab. They do not realize the merchandise was diverted. They mention they only need a few more days pretending to be good guys and the job is done. But suddenly one of them tells the others to wait. He wants to know who that guy is over there. The young man says they arrived early and he did not even have time to finish eating. The gangster orders his men to get the beggar out of the way. The young man struggles to break free and warns them that he is not done with his soup yet. The gangster asks what is wrong with this lunatic. The young man comments on his face. He asks why it was so hard to see. Then he takes off his sunglasses and says it is much better this way. The gangster throws a direct punch to his face. He warns the guy to get lost while he is still being nice before he loses his life. But in reality, the gangster shatters his entire hand on impact. The young man tells him to stop whining like a baby and stands up right after. He says he knows they are coming back from the lab with money and asks how much it is. The heart of rock activates in that exact moment. Do Young Kong warns them that he will take that as payment. Meanwhile, at a school soccer game, Gio thinks that it has already been a week since he started attending classes. The first mission the leader gave him was to act like a normal person and adapt to an ordinary life. At first, he was afraid his identity would be discovered. This led him to act strangely, and because of that, he could not enjoy anything. But after studying and eating with boys his age, he realizes something. School is much more fun than he imagined. Taigu passes the ball toward him. Gio thinks about how hard it is to believe he can run and play freely again. He traps the ball on his chest and gets ready to kick, but he trips right at the last second and falls flat on his back. The others make fun of him and say he is terrible at this. Now Gio truly just looks like a normal person. He feels so happy that he even forgets his life as a fugitive. All this was thanks to Hyeji and Taigu. On the way back home, he mentions that the chicken skewers smell amazing. It is as if the savory aroma were hitting him right in the face. They keep walking and talking. Taigu warns him that if he keeps drooling, he will eat everything himself. Gio replies that he wants to share with the puppy. But the girl warns him that dogs cannot eat anything with so much seasoning, until a strange noise echoes from the alley. Kang complains that he is starving because he spent too much of his power. There were more gangsters than he expected. After fighting all night, he has no strength left to even walk. He desperately needs to eat something. Then he notices a flower bed right ahead. He reaches out to grab it since his power can turn that into energy. But Gio suddenly appears and stops him, saying he cannot eat that. The young man defends himself, saying he was not trying to eat dirt, but Gio ignores him. He warns him that he tried doing that before and it went terribly wrong. He says it is much better to eat plants. Hyeji approaches and says he should not eat those things either. Kang explains that he misunderstood and he is not homeless, but he realizes that this is exactly what they thought of him. A strong smell suddenly invades his nostrils. He asks if he can have a little bit of the skewer. Gio thinks to himself that he hasn't even taken a bite yet. Looking at that guy is like looking at himself in the past, and just like Hyeji did, he feels he should show a little kindness. So he offers the guy a bite. Kang opens his mouth eagerly. He eats the entire skewer shamelessly right in front of the protagonist. Right after that, he lets out a loud burp and lets out a sigh, saying it feels like he came back to life. He gives thanks for the food while Gio keeps complaining about his lost skewer. The young man guarantees he will return the favor. He pulls out a bag full of money and holds it in his hand. Everyone wonders if he wasn't homeless after all. Kang hands it over and says that this should be enough to pay for it. He steps forward to grab the money, but the bag vanishes from in front of him in the blink of an eye. Two thieves ride past on a motorcycle and take the bag of money. They keep accelerating and robbing everyone along the way. Hyeji warns that she will call the police immediately, but she gets distracted and wants to know where everyone went. The three of them run off screaming that they will not let them take the money. The thieves see that they are being followed and mock them, thinking no one on foot will catch up to a motorcycle. Gio decides he will chase the guys alone. Taigu thinks fast and knows that if he uses his power there, it will be a problem if there are witnesses. So he grabs onto Kang's pants to get in the way. He questions what the brat is doing. Gio sees that the street is empty and no one is watching. He takes the chance and activates his mutant heart. He starts running at the same speed for a few seconds, but the pace changes completely right after. The thug looks back very quickly. He realizes that the protagonist is running like a madman and catching up to the motorcycle. He is in shock and wonders how a guy can keep up with their speed. At this, Gio leaps to try to grab the bag, but the thieves manage to dodge it by a hair. Gio hits the ground and rolls backward. The guys wonder what kind of crazy person that was, and if they had managed to escape. But the thief gets an even bigger scare. The distance is not increasing, and he realizes that this bastard is not a normal person. His partner looks up looking for a way out. He notices that there is a giant pile of bricks nearby. They try to knock the pile down by hitting it to hit the kid. The bricks lose their balance and start to collapse. The protagonist is caught by surprise, right in the face of danger. A cloud of smoke explodes on the ground covering the street. The thief flips the bird and screams good riddance, but amidst the dust and rubble, the protagonist gets up complaining of a headache. He says he has to catch them no matter what, but the people around him stare in confusion. Soon a whole crowd forms around him. Meanwhile, in another location, the thieves park their motorcycle. They mention they finally have a clear path, and they manage to gather a decent amount of cash this time. But suddenly Kang appears right in front of them and lands a direct hit on the guys. The two thieves are completely startled. They lose their balance and start falling off the motorcycle until they slam face first into the ground. Kang asks why they are running away so desperately. He explains that as long as he touches the ground, he can feel everything anyway. The crowd nearby starts wondering if he is some kind of mutant. Kang warns that the money does not belong to them, so they better hand it all over right away. The thief tells him to cut that crap and warns that it does not matter if he is a mutant because he surely does not have armor on his stomach. In that instant, the other guys start revving their motorcycles. The thief laughs and says that place is their hideout. He says it is the perfect moment and they will end up selling Kang too. Kang just asks if that is really what they wanted. Then he touches the ground and notes there are actually few guys there. His stone heart begins to react. The vibration of the entire earth gathers straight into his hand. The bikers start charging at him, but suddenly, the ground begins to shake with massive force. It looks as if an earthquake is happening. They are left confused because even pillars start sprouting from the ground. Kang warns he will bury that entire hideout with everyone inside, and right after he closes the crack that opened up. Far from there at the police station, the secretary hands a file to the team leader. He informs her that those are the details on the target she had requested earlier. Yane notes it is about the construction company suspected of having ties to the research lab. She notices the team leader appears to be quite young and thinks she should call Gio. The secretary asks if the guy in the file is a relative of that boy, but she replies that no one knows for sure. She says he could very well be the friend Gio is looking for, or maybe it is not him, but it is a clue. Her instinct tells her he is definitely the friend of Gio. Back at the office, Gio enters shouting and demanding to know if she found his friend. She tells him to calm down because she still is not certain of anything. She compliments how well the uniform fits him and asks how things are at school. Gio says everything is going great, but being at school makes him miss his friends even more. But he cuts the topic short and wants to know what she meant by finding his friend. She hands over the paperwork and explains they are investigating a target who is the same age as him. She asks him to take a look and see if it is the friend he is searching for so badly. Gio takes the papers and analyzes the face of the guy in the photo. Then he realizes and says, that is the homeless man he saw earlier. He remembers that the guy ate his whole chicken skewer earlier. The girl explains that his name is Dongwook Kang. Gio says he does not recognize the face at all. He explains his eyes were bad in the lab and did not regenerate, but guarantees he would know his friend if he saw him in person. He states he has never seen that name or face until he realizes what might be happening. He asks her to wait a moment. He notes that this ability to turn to stone is very specific. That power belonged to Do-young Kang, his friend from the lab. With that power, it has to be him. Gio asks if the man in the picture really uses rock-based powers. She confirms and says the ability is called Rock Heart. Gio asks where this guy is now. Tian explains he is working with the lab just like Chaewon. She says that is probably how he became the boss of a multi-million-dollar construction company. She says it is just circumstantial evidence for now, but she is certain of the connection. Gio repeats the fact that he is in the same boat as Chaewon. Hien asks if he is up for the mission she prepared. A smile spreads across Gio's face. He replies that she can be absolutely sure of it. She explains there is a construction labor company called Hodan Construction. Do-hyung Kang is the boss of that company. She says he will go undercover to the construction site where Do-hyung Kang is currently working. The goal is to find his friend inside, and then find out what kind of deal he has with the lab. But she warns him to keep in mind that his friends have changed. Do-young is much more deeply involved with the lab than Chaewon was. She tells him to stay alert and question everything. She notes it will be even better if he can convince Do-young to switch sides. That way, the lab that hides and exploits test subjects will lose its power, and they can finally bring the whole truth to light. The scene cuts, and Taegu gets startled in the middle of his work. He reflects that he promised to help Gio find his friend, but never imagined he would have to do brutal manual labor. Gio asks if his friend is okay. He says he appreciates the help, but the guy does not need to work himself to death. Taegu brushes it off, claiming it is a piece of cake and that Gio should not worry. He reminds him they are infiltrating his friend's company and tells Gio to just trust him. Taegu asks where exactly they are going to find the guy, and Gio confesses he has no clue where he is. The guy panics. He realizes the plan was just to search the massive construction site all day until they stumbled upon the target. Gio innocently asks if there is a problem with that. Taegu says they will never find him like that and should just ask the workers. He says they just need to kiss up to the older guys. Right then, one of the site managers angrily crushes a can. He grumbles that they gave the kids a job and they are already slacking off. The manager yells that they should know everyone there is busy. He claims the problem with kids today is that they always run like dogs when things get tough, and he tells Gio to stop running with heavy loads so he does not trip and get hurt. The manager orders them to move all the material in an hour and says they can leave if they fail. The two boys agree on the spot. The workers walk away complaining they never should have hired kids for the job. Taegu complains the guys did not even give them a chance to ask anything. He figures they need to finish the job before trying to talk, and he wonders how they are supposed to move that mountain of debris in just an hour. Gio says the guy yelled at him for running with the load and decides that since he cannot run, he has another solution. He decides to simply put a lot more weight on his back at once and walk slowly. Taegu panics and warns him that it weighs about 160 kilos, something no normal person can lift. The construction workers are surprised by what they see. They stare in awe at Gio moving so fast. He tells them he is just walking very fast. Taegu runs after him, asking him to wait. They wonder where this absurd strength comes from. Then Taegu announces they have moved all the cement. They finish everything in less than an hour, and Taegu wants to know what to do next. One of the workers comments that they have energy to burn. He points out there is more cement on the other side, but before he finishes his sentence, Gio is already running. He flies past all the workers with the cement bag. The men become increasingly shocked. Soon they announce that they are done moving the cement. They ask how else they can help. They start working with the cement. They hand the tools to the workers. They even carry all the wood by themselves. The men change their minds and comment that unlike most young people, these two are hardworking and fast. Someone says that if every kid worked like this, they would be welcomed with open arms. Suddenly, one of the power cables starts whipping through the air. The wire moves dangerously as it disconnects. A young man yells for everyone to step back. Mr. Song is almost struck directly by the cable, but Gio steps in front of it right away. Song yells out his name in worry. Gio withstands the energy discharge without a problem. Finally, someone manages to turn off the power. Gio sits on the ground. Everyone gathers around him to see if he is all right. Gio says he is fine and did not get shocked while thinking that was a close call. Since the current was not that strong, he did not get burned, but he almost revealed he is a mutant. The workers tell him they owe him one now. They start treating Gio extremely well because of this. Gio thinks it is good that things worked out, but realizes construction sites are far more dangerous than he thought. He understands why they are always on edge, even though they are good people deep down. Taegu notes that the guys should respect them enough by now to answer a few questions. He knows asking directly will make them look suspicious, so they decide to be subtle. Taegu asks if there is any place nearby with guys their age, but the workers get confused and ask about his own age. They say Taegu looks like he is at least 30 years old. Taegu grumbles that he is 17, and Gio explains they are looking for a company with guys in their 20s. The workers mention that Hoden Construction has several employees like that. Gio asks where they can find those guys. The workers explain it is a brutal place, but they make a lot of money because the job is twice as exhausting. Taegu asks where these people hang out. Then one of the workers points and says they are arriving right now. A white van pulls up next to them. A man steps out of the vehicle. Taegu finds his clothes strange. He does not understand how construction workers can afford luxury clothes like that. They are wearing expensive brands from head to toe, and Taegu really wants to find out how much money they are making. Taegu draws attention once again. Do-hyung steps out of the car right after. He takes off his glasses because he instantly recognizes someone. He mentions that Gio is the guy who gave him the chicken skewer. They had already bumped into each other before all of this. Gio remembers his time at the lab. He figures he knows that guy better than anyone else. It has been over 10 years, and because of that, he says they have met before. Do-hyung says it really is a small world. Gio replies that it is no coincidence and that he already knew he worked there. Do-hyung acts surprised and asks how he knows that. Gio decides that starting today, he will join his company and unearth everything. He wants to uncover the suspicious connection between him and the lab, regardless of whether he works for them or is being blackmailed. In the end, they will be friends again, just like the old days. Now, inside an office, Do-hyung tries to grasp the situation. He asks if the two came all the way out there to join the firm. He appreciates the intention, but warns that things are not that simple. Gio thinks he already expected that answer since he has always been a man of strict principles. So he states that the boss will soon realize just how much he needs him. Do-hyung fails to understand what he means by that. Gio tells him he will show it in practice. He gets up from his chair while everyone else remains clueless. Gio moves the cup and folders around on the desk. This catches Do-hyung completely off guard. After all, the kid starts rearranging everything in the room. Taegu asks what he is doing and tells him he cannot just touch the belongings of others. The other guys also stand confused by the scene. To finish it off, Gio pushes a cabinet to the side. He announces that the job is done, and explains that this is the most efficient way to use the space. The guys start complaining, but Do-hyung raises his hand, calling for silence. He asks Gio to explain why that setup is more efficient. Gio says he is right-handed, so the coffee needs to be on the right side. He also adds that the folders must follow the order of their arrival dates. Meanwhile, the pen holder stays in a corner where it is not in the way, but remains within immediate reach. Do-hyung asks the reason for moving the cabinet. Gio explains that the furniture blocked the window, giving a direct view of the construction site. He notes that for a boss who needs to manage everything, that view is essential. The others shout that this is a joke, and that they organized it all like that for a reason. Gio fires back, saying that if they actually knew anything, the accident today would not have happened. He clarifies that efficiency is not just doing things fast, but creating an environment anyone can grasp instantly to react in times of danger. He claims that this is how real efficiency works, and it is the only way to prevent accidents. Do-hyung agrees and notes that they did not even realize something had gone wrong at the site. He asks if the site manager even knew about the accident. The manager answers that he still has not seen the official report, and Do-hyung asks if he needs a piece of paper to see what is right in front of him. He says they should just look at the materials scattered across the floor, or notice the missing workers. The boss states that he should have known about the issue just by looking at the delay in the schedule. After delivering that brutal scolding, he points his finger at Gio. Gio stares at his finger without saying a single word, but Do-hyung cracks a smile. He bursts into laughter and says Gio just pointed out a massive blind spot that even he missed. He decides it is time to reassess everything from scratch, while Gio thinks about how he was the one who taught him that in the past. Do-hyung organizes the stretchers and says the work becomes much more efficient this way. The protagonist gets excited and mentions he was worried about the team getting hurt, and also wants to learn how to do that. Do-hyung looks a bit shy and offers to teach him how things work around there. Back in the present, he points at the protagonist and announces he starts at the company today. He explains he needs to step out to take care of some things, and wants to see all the paperwork done by the time he returns. Gio bows his head in thanks, and Taegu gives him a compliment. The protagonist notes he knows Do-hyung better than he realizes, and now just needs to figure out what kind of business he is running with the lab. Taegu notices that even so, the atmosphere is far from welcoming. All the guys around them are absolutely furious. An hour later at the construction site, the tension lingers. Taegu complains they are stuck doing the heavy lifting until the boss comes back, and Gio replies that this is already a huge victory for him. But a worker kicks the pipe and asks who told them to place it like that. He tells them the piece should be facing the other way. Gio defends himself and says they just did exactly what he ordered, but the guy tells him to shut his mouth and flip the pipe already. Another hour passes after that. The worker kicks the pipe again and asks why they are laying the drainage pipe now. Taegu fails to understand what the guy is trying to pull. The worker complains they have not even leveled the slope yet, and no one told them to lay the pipe first. Taegu insists they only followed the exact orders he gave them earlier, but the man grabs his shirt and asks if he is talking back and tells him to get lost if he does not like it. He tells Taegu to stop whining and tear everything out within an hour. Taegu glances to the side right after. He catches the guy flashing a mocking smirk. It becomes clear these guys are messing with them on purpose. This makes Taegu even more infuriated with the situation. He tells Gio he is going to the bathroom. On his way there, he overhears the workers laughing. They say Gio is just a brat acting like he owns the place. They complain they already have too many mouths to feed and should not be splitting their cash with some kid. They figure the foreman is on their side anyway. Taegu bangs on the door and calls out their cheap talk. He tells them they are dead wrong if they think he will just sit back and take this, and promises to knock some sense into their heads. Everyone wonders when the kid sneaked up to the door. Taegu grabs one of the guys by the shirt and says they are completely sabotaging the job. The giant guy says he really wants to beat him to a pulp, but cannot do it. Taegu fires back, saying he started the provocation, and that he also knows how to use his fists very well. Another guy steps in to break it up and warns them not to start a fight. He says the kid does not even know the basics, and should be thankful he got hired because of his friend. Taegu gets even more irritated by the sheer audacity of the guy. He demands to know if the guy thinks they are the only ones working, and if he thinks he is stronger than everyone else. The worker replies that if that is the case, they can settle this another way. He challenges Taegu to settle everything with an arm wrestling match. He promises that if Taegu wins, they will show respect and stop bothering them. Taegu thinks this suddenly turned into a very childish game, but he knows the guy picked the wrong person to challenge. He is absolutely sure he will turn that mocking look into pure regret in a matter of seconds. But Taegu has his arm slammed against the table before he can even react. The young man is left completely bewildered. He tries to process what just happened. The opponent is truly skilled. If this were a real fight, he would be screwed. The guy announces that both of them need to resign now that he has lost. The rules are clear. The loser packs his bags and leaves. Taegu realizes this was their plan all along. His arm hit the table only once, but the pain is unbearable. To make matters worse, the man squeezes his hand even harder. He warns that they are going for another round. Taegu raises his free hand and apologizes. He says he accepts defeat, but his friend will not agree to this. That is why they should try to settle the situation another way. The worker says he will handle the friend himself, but Taegu warns that it will do no good. No one there will be able to break that guy's stubbornness. Taegu knows that if Gio gets involved, he will destroy them all. He begs them to just let the matter go. But the guys state that it does not matter if they leave on their own. They are leaving either way because they will have their hands crushed right there. The man starts slamming Taegu's hand on the table repeatedly. Taegu cries from the sheer pain. The aggressor raises his arm to slam his hand one last time. In that instant, Gio places his hand on the table. The atmosphere in the room shifts immediately. Everyone is left speechless. Taegu calls out Gio's name. Gio announces that his arm wrestling rules are different. He challenges the guy to a real match. The group that was previously serious erupts into laughter, but Gio maintains a cold expression. Taegu says they are nothing but a bunch of cowards. The guys declare that the rules have changed, and the hospital bill will fall on the rookie. The brute claims he was going to go easy out of pity for his friend, but has now changed his mind. He warns that Gio's arm might actually end up broken. The two lock hands and prepare themselves. The man thinks he is dealing with a stupid kid who does not understand the danger. He decides he will cripple Gio's hand to teach him and his partner a lesson. He loudly declares that the match will end in a second, but Gio slams the guy's arm against the table in the blink of an eye. The bone in the man's arm snaps in half. The guy starts screaming in agony. The rest of the group is completely shocked by the scene. Gio orders the guy to return to the starting position. He states that the match is not over yet, and continues slamming the man's broken arm against the table. The guy drops to the floor rolling in pain while clutching his hand. The other guys panic and scream for Supervisor Joe. They charge at Gio all at once. Gio does not even change his expression in the face of the attack. He takes down both of them using only one hand, until another guy strikes his back with a wooden club, but he takes a punch in return. The impact throws him backward. His colleagues manage to catch him. The foreman says Gio is not normal. He orders everyone to rush him at once, but a voice orders all the idiots to stop right there. The delinquents freeze completely. Gio just turns his head. Dong-young has just arrived at the scene. He asks what the hell they are doing. One of the men tries to explain himself, but Dong-young smashes his head against the wall. The man begs for mercy, and Dong-young tells them they should train instead of bullying others. Taegu realizes that if the situation escalates, Gio might get fired. So he lies and says it is all a misunderstanding and they were just arm wrestling. But Gio cuts through the lie and states that the guy was hitting his friend first. Dong-young replies that he already knows since this is not the first time they do this kind of thing, but he warns that Gio has also crossed the line this time. He orders Gio to look at the state he left the men in. Gio retorts that his friend is in the exact same state, and Taegu has a hand so swollen he cannot hold a thing. He explains he had to strike back just as hard, so they never mess with them again. Dong-young notes that the boy keeps talking back to the bitter end. He states he has been lenient so far, but Gio is practically begging for a beating. Gio replies that he does not want to get beaten, but has to speak up because nothing changes if he stays quiet. Dong-young realizes the striking similarity of the situation. It reminds him of the past when he himself said the experiments would continue no matter what. Gio repeats that silence changes nothing. He declares he can endure anything but will never stand by and watch a friend get hurt. Dong-young admits the boy strongly reminds him of his past self. Taegu laments that they are getting thrown out on the street. But Dong-young asks where he got that idea and states that Gio will not just run away after causing trouble. Gio is surprised to hear this. Dong-young explains that the man with the broken arm is going to the hospital and someone needs to cover his shift. The foreman interrupts and suggests the other guys can take the shift instead. But Dong-young tells him to shut up and warns that he is hanging by a thread to keep his temper. Gio asks if he just needs to do the job in place of the injured man. Dong-young tells him not to worry about the details and just show up at 5 in the morning because he will train the boy himself. The next day at the agreed time, Gio assumes it must be some lab secret. He tries to imagine what kind of work they have planned until Dong-young spots him. Dong-young orders the boy to follow him because they are heading deep underground. He presses the button of an old elevator. Gio wonders if there really is a basement down there. The old freight elevator descends into the sublevels, and Gio tries to figure out what the man is hiding. Dong-young asks if the boy is nervous, and Gio admits he is just a little. Dong-young jokes that yesterday he did not care about confronting the boss, but now he seems to be losing his nerve. Gio firmly replies that he simply cannot stand watching a friend face such cowardice. Dong-young agrees and says that is far better than those idiots who are all talk, but he seriously warns that Gio must never pull a stunt like that again. He makes it absolutely clear that if he causes any trouble down there, he will not leave alive. The elevator finally reaches its destination. Dong-young announces they have arrived. Gio notices that beneath the construction site lies an endless underground tunnel. He wonders what the guy is planning to do with the lab. Dong-young says everything he sees here is a corporate secret. He orders Gio to move all the barrels to the designated areas. Gio asks what is inside, and Dong-young tells him not to ask questions. He demands that all barrels be moved by the end of the day without complaint, since it was Gio who beat up his men. He turns his back and tells Gio to start working. Gio smiles in relief, feeling good to see his old partner after so long, and almost reveals who he really is. But first, he needs to find out what they are plotting, and only then will he reveal his identity. He focuses on the barrels, really wanting to know what is in them. They are tightly sealed and clearly should not be opened, but he decides to force the lid anyway. He rips the lid off with extreme ease, and soon notices the contents inside. He instantly recognizes that chemical smell from the lab. He sticks his hand into the liquid to feel it. He knows that if he absorbs it into his blood, he will find out what it is. He gets startled in that instant. It is the exact same same feeling as when they threw that at him before. His arm comes out of the barrel completely disfigured. He realizes it is the same toxin used in the experiments on him. He wonders what Kang Dong-young is plotting. He thinks he needs to warn Hye-in fast since this is proof of a connection. In another room, Dong-young watches everything through the cameras. His hands start turning into stone. He mutters to himself that he already figured the new guy was not just an ordinary punk. Now he knows he is a real mutant. The fact he opened the barrel shows he might belong to some organization trying to steal the chemicals. He decides he will find out everything as soon as his men catch him. He warns over the radio that the intruder's power is regeneration and orders his men not to hold back. He wants to find out the exact limit of this healing and states that he will finish the guy off himself in the end. Geo wonders what Dong-young is trying to do with all this. He realizes the guy knew from the start and approached him on purpose. He thought Dong-young was just a naive idiot, but he was dead wrong. It becomes clear that Dong-young knows him better than he thought and even manipulated his emotions carefully. He was closely analyzed, which proves his infiltration was already expected. Geo admits he has no idea what the guy really wants. Suddenly the door opens and a bunch of thugs show up. Geo realizes he chose the wrong target to mess with. The guys tell him to bring it on and say they already know everything. He is surprised by their reaction. He asks what is going on, and they mention they saw everything on the camera, and they curse him as a mutant bastard. They all charge at him at once, but Geo sends the first one flying away with a single strike and begins dropping them one by one without mercy. Dong-young wonders if he is a mutant with body reinforcement. The protagonist realizes he has no other choice. If the path is blocked, he just needs to push through with brute force. He then sends one of the delinquents flying. Everyone is completely terrified by the scene, but the protagonist gives them no chance to fight back, until several of them manage to pin him down. They smash a bat right into his face. Geo takes hit after hit without a pause. The man says his ability is regeneration and warns that his bat also breaks bones, but the protagonist lands a solid punch right in his face. He tosses the guy away with absurd ease. Dong-young thinks this strength is enough to take down a man, but feels he still has not shown his full potential. He knows this will happen soon. Another man charges at him using chains. Several of them start holding the protagonist down again, then they begin tying him up with the chain, pinning down every part of his body. The thugs notice he is starting to get up. Another guy readies a knife and orders the group to hold him on the ground. The plan is to cut his nerves so he cannot move. He then starts stabbing the boy multiple times, just as he readies the next stab. The man is completely shocked because he has already hit him dozens of times, yet his face does not even flinch. It is something completely inhuman. Geo touches his finger to the ground. He activates his resurrection heart. All the blood on the floor starts moving toward him. Dong-young notices something strange. He is absorbing all the blood scattered around. With all this happening at once, his body begins to regenerate. The healing is much faster than the damage he was taking. It is an incredible regeneration speed on a very rare level. Furthermore, he gets stronger the more blood he absorbs. He looks like a runaway train, and Dong-young desperately wants to know what kind of heart he has. Geo braces for combat. He disappears in a split second. He strikes the face of another thug. The other guys also go flying away. Geo keeps taking them down one by one. The blonde man thinks this kid is way too fast, but the protagonist already appears right in front of him. He lands a heavy blow straight to the chest of the man. The man instantly coughs up a lot of blood. He falls right into the arms of his comrades. Geo dodges another attack from the group. He grabs the ground with immense force and tears up the entire floor. The crowd thinks it is madness as he tears up the concrete slab. Geo prepares to throw the slab. He hurls the piece of concrete right at them. The delinquents freeze in shock. They can only raise their arms to try and defend themselves. In that instant, a massive cloud of dust rises everywhere. The dust slowly settles and reveals that the guys are completely unharmed. Geo maintains a very serious expression. A stone hand shatters the concrete right there. It is Dong-young who appears standing in front of him. Dong-young says he wants to ask a question. He wants to know what kind of heart the boy has. The giant mentions he has seen heart mutants before, but healing wounds in less than a second is something new. Just from that ability, he realizes the kid is high level and has a heavily enhanced body. When it comes to regeneration, only one kid comes to his mind. But that boy had a very weak ability, and most importantly, that kid died in a bomb explosion. Geo just stands there without saying a word. Dong-young takes the silence as a definitive answer. He warns that he will have to teach him some manners by force. Geo dodges the strikes with great ease. He thinks it is too early to reveal who he really is, and he still needs to uncover the connection this guy has to the lab. That is why he decides to keep his suspicions about Kang Dong-young until the end. Geo keeps dodging every attack aimed his way. Then Dong-young prepares one final massive punch. He talks about the instant healing ability of the boy. He warns that the kid is dead wrong if he relies solely on that, because the next strike will not just leave a bruise. He says there will not be a single piece of his body left to tell the tale. In that moment, several stone pillars begin to sprout from the ground. The rocks advance straight toward Geo. Geo ends up slamming his back against a large rock. Dong-hyung warns that this is the last chance for the boy. He gathers the stones into his own hand. His fist is covered in a stone armor much thicker than usual. He asks one more time who sent him there. Geo realizes that his foot is completely trapped in the ground. He notes that his legs are also locked in the stones. Dong-hyung sees that he has chosen to stay quiet even with the threat. Then he unleashes a brutal punch straight to the face of the boy. Geo is thrown back with such force that he crashes right through the rock wall. The factory crew is terrified by what they just saw. Dong-hyung remains standing in the same spot. Meanwhile, the head of Geo is torn off and goes flying through the air. The blow was so forceful that his body is split apart. The remaining part of his body begins to fall to the ground. The delinquents are in shock at the absurd violence of that attack. Suddenly, the severed head of Geo starts spouting blood in a strange way. The blood acts like a glue that pulls his head back to his neck. Ultimately, his body completely regenerates in that exact moment. Dong-hyung is shocked to see the guy back on his feet even after having his head ripped off. The protagonist takes advantage of this and delivers a heavy punch to his stomach. This makes Dong-hyung wonder if he is still regenerating and growing stronger. He is thrown back by the force of the blow. Dong-hyung plants his foot on the ground and slowly slides backward until he manages to stop and face the protagonist head-on. He warns him that the attack was no big deal and says that flesh and bone cannot pierce his stone skin. He tells him he will only end up breaking his own arm, but he soon realizes he spoke too soon, because as he spoke, the protagonist's arm was already almost completely healed. This is surprising and makes him remember something. The image of Kim Geo stays stuck in his head. Back then, the boy took hours to heal an arm, but now that face will not leave his thoughts. Meanwhile, this mysterious guy can regenerate instantly even without a head. He decides he cannot mistake that kid for the monster in front of him. He thinks a guy with this level of power must be from some organization trying to steal information about the laboratory. But it does not matter to him who the guy is, because he guarantees nobody will lay a finger on the lab and launches a stone attack. Geo ends up trapped in the middle of the rocks once again, but this time he breaks through it all himself and charges forward. Dong-hyung is left completely stunned by this and takes a direct punch to the face. Even so, he tells the guy to give up because trying to hit him is useless, and warns that either way, the lab will uncover his identity as soon as he is delivered. Geo realizes he was right the whole time. He concludes that this guy has also been selling mutants to the laboratory and says he will not walk away unpunished for doing so. Dong-hyung asks what he means by that story, but the protagonist gives him no chance to respond and lands another heavy punch to his stomach, telling him to look back and face the sins he has committed. Dong-hyung says none of this makes sense because he will become a billionaire very soon. He warns that he will sell the protagonist's body for the highest possible price. Geo says that being the case, he will forcefully knock some sense into his head and begins to absorb all the blood scattered across the floor. Dong-hyung tries to understand what is happening in front of him. An absurd amount of blood is being pulled in all at once. He realizes the guy is increasing his own power and in that instant takes another blow to the stomach. Dong-hyung calls him incredibly stupid for wasting such a strong ability like that and repeats that human bones will never be able to break his rocks. He thinks the fight is becoming ridiculous, but Geo ignores him and keeps hitting him relentlessly. Dong-hyung warns him that he can throw 1,000 punches and the result will be the same, and that the only thing breaking here will be the attacker's own hand. Geo prepares to launch another strike and strikes his ribs with brutal force. In that moment, Dong-hyung finally feels the pain and wonders why the blows are starting to have an effect. The protagonist moves faster than before and lands a perfect hook right on his chin. Geo leaves the guy no room to breathe and says he can strike 1,000 times if he has to. Dong-hyung quickly realizes he is dealing with an absolute lunatic. He begins to dodge the blows. He notes that Geo does not care if his own body is tearing apart, and that is exactly why he charged in with everything. All of this just to find his weak points. Once a crack appears, it never stops growing. Dong-hyung tries to counter with a heavy stone strike, cratering the ground right where the boy was standing, but he immediately realizes that Geo is no longer there. Geo strikes his chest again with full force, launching the giant away as if he were nothing. Dong-hyung simply cannot keep up with that speed. He crouches on the ground and tries to gather himself, feeling an absurd amount of pain in his head. The cracks across his stone skin start to look brutal. He wonders if the boy feels no pain at all. He realizes his mistake and notes that trying to capture the boy alive was pure stupidity. There is no holding back against a monster like that. In response, he starts swallowing rocks straight from the ground. Geo watches closely and tries to understand what is happening. Dong-hyung has his flesh tearing apart as his heart reacts to the whole process. He screams for his men to get out of there if they still want to live. The men do not think twice and run for their lives. Dong-hyung gets his heart completely loaded with minerals. His body density reaches its absolute limit. The ground begins to vibrate violently. He clenches his fists and announces that he will uproot everything around them, forming a massive and gigantic boulder. Geo is shocked and wonders how the man can control something so huge. He knows that if that hits him directly, there will not even be dust left of him. His only option is to get out of there as fast as possible. Dong-hyung screams that this is the end for the boy. Stone walls rise up and trap Geo right in his tracks, crushing the boy from all sides and completely smashing him between the massive rocks. The impact sends jagged stones flying everywhere. Dong-hyung never imagined a single mutant would force him to use 100% of his strength. He pants heavily and tries to catch his breath, spitting blood onto the ground from the sheer exertion. He thinks about how rich he would be if he delivered the kid alive, but he could not afford to hold back. That is when he notices something very strange flash, straight ahead. Through the smoke, a skeleton rises from the rubble. He can barely believe the boy survived that impact. His torn flesh is still trying to regenerate from absolutely nothing, but Gio suddenly collapses. Dong-hyung concludes that even such a broken ability must have its limits. He admits that he felt chills thinking the boy was going to stand back up. At least there is still something left to send to the lab. Then the unexpected happens. The skeleton arm begins to move on its own, touching the ground in a completely bizarre way. Dong-hyung freezes completely and says, "This is impossible." All the blood on the ground begins to flow straight toward the boy. The blood begins to be absorbed by the skeleton arms. Gio charges forward even though he is nothing but bone. Dong-hyung had never heard of an immortal mutant before. He realizes this is no ordinary regeneration. His ability simply denies death itself. Then the protagonist lands a solid blow right to his abdomen. Dong-hyung starts coughing up a lot of blood. The impact throws him straight into the warehouse wall. He falls to the ground right after. He coughs violently as the protagonist slowly approaches. Dong-hyung asks what kind of power that is. He lifts his head and looks up. He demands to know who the guy really is, but suddenly he understands what is happening. He cannot believe his eyes. That skeleton looks just like his friend from the past. He wonders if his friend had not lost his life back then. He asks if it is really him standing there. Then he calls out the name Kim Gio. Dong-hyung wonders why he hid his ability and tried to infiltrate this company. Gio touches his hand to the ground once more. Dong-hyung thinks he is focusing his power again. The protagonist prepares to charge with everything he has. He realizes Gio is actually trying to kill him. He knows he cannot survive another hit like that. That is why he screams the name Kim Gio again. He asks if Gio is really going to try to kill his own friend. He tells the idiot to stop hitting him. Gio stops his punch in midair right on time. Later in the company room, Dong-hyung starts thinking about Kim Gio. He brought the guy to the office to calm things down and talk, but that Gio is not the one he knew, and everything is different from his personality to his abilities. His regeneration is completely insane to the point that the guy is literally immortal. He wonders how much his friend has changed. Then he offers the protagonist some coffee. Dong-hyung sees the situation as a massive victory since Gio has a soft heart, and keeping a guy like that under his command would be a huge triumph. He thinks he knows his friend very well. He says he thought his friend had lost his life in the past. Dong-hyung wants to know why he hid his identity and even pretended to be a worker. Gio cuts the talk short and tells him to give him his hand before they speak. Dong-hyung extends his hand without understanding what his friend wants to do. He mentions that he got hurt a bit earlier when he was scratched, but Gio says he already knows, and that is exactly why he asked for his hand. Then the protagonist begins to concentrate. In a memory of his training with Hien, she asks if he was worried about the Chaewon issue. Gio confirms that was the problem. He wants to know what he should do if a situation like Chaewon happens again. She answers directly that he has to fight. Gio feels that the idea of fighting a friend is too painful since he missed them for years. Ultimately, he wonders if there is no way to convince them by talking, but she tells him to get real. She asks what he really wants. Gio replies that he wants to save the friends tied to the lab. She notes that he is talking about the friends who helped them before. She explains that they cannot be saved with just words, and that they are all high-ranking mutants with important roles. They can kill without a second thought and must already be criminals. She asks if he really thinks people like that will listen to his pleas. The way things stand, he will end up being used instead of helping. Coldly and calculated, they will throw him into the fire and leave him to burn. Exactly like what happened with Chaewon. His friends might need help, but they are also the same ones who can kill him. Gio reflects on the chance of being killed by them. He agrees and says they are no longer the same kids he knew. He realizes he will end up losing the rest of his friends if he keeps acting this way. So he asks what needs to change to save everyone. Hien says she likes his determination, but she warns him that he is wrong about one thing. He needs to change his mindset from the start and stop thinking of them as friends. If he really wants to save everyone, he needs to stand above them. Gio does not understand what she means by that. The girl bites her own finger. She tells him to try absorbing her blood. Back in the present, Gio says he finished what he had to do. He warns the guy not to lie from now on. In that instant, he begins focusing on the target's heart rate. He says he can clearly hear his heartbeat. Dong-hyung does not understand how he is doing that. Gio explains that he absorbed the blood and can hear heartbeats thanks to Hyen's power. She had explained earlier that investigators reported that blood mutants can sense heartbeats. If he can read intentions through heartbeats, he will have a huge advantage in the conversation. Gio asks why the guy works for the lab when they suffered there for 10 years. He demands an immediate answer. Dong-hyung is shocked to realize he really can hear his heart beating. He sees the boy has returned as a complete monster and wonders what happened. The man says he only needs to know one thing. He asks what Gio's goal is. Gio states clearly that he wants to destroy the lab. Dong-hyung spits his coffee and asks if he is serious. The boy confirms and asks the man's level of involvement with the place. Dong-hyung tells him not to be reckless and warns that no one can take down the lab. Besides, he points out that all their friends are trapped there right now. Gio stands his ground and says he will destroy the place and get his friends out. The man says he will not help at all because he does not want to be an enemy of the lab. Gio says he is just taking his information and does not need permission to destroy the place. Dong-hyung grinds his teeth in anger at those words. Fear starts to take over. He ends up handing over all the documents he kept. These were the data he secretly collected inside the base. There is a bit of everything, like facility blueprints, subject code names, and lists of missing people. He hands over photos and diaries, saying that apart from maximum security files, The rest is there, and asks to be left out of the plan. Gio points out that there is something wrong with this story. He says Kang Do-young has too much inside information on the lab. If the intent was not to make enemies out of them, gathering so much material makes no sense. He notes that the moment he mentioned attacking the lab, Do-hyung's heart started racing. It seemed like he was waiting to hear exactly that. In reality, Do-hyung also wants to achieve this goal. Do-hyung is surprised and wonders how he can figure all this out just from a heartbeat. He admits he cannot hide anything from Gio. He confesses that, deep down, that was exactly it. He also wants to bring down the lab but thought it was impossible. The lab is far larger than he imagined, and those guys have connections everywhere. The facilities are located deep underground, totally hidden and out of reach of normal people, and their network of influence is simply insane. Everything is built on the sacrifice of his own friends. They know how to control everyone. They exploit weaknesses and promise rewards as bait to maintain control. That is why he hesitates and asks if Gio still wants to attack, even knowing all this. Gio guarantees he will rescue his friends held in captivity and ensure the lab can never use them again. He states that no matter the size of the enemy, he will not change his mind, but he warns that he needs Kang Do-young's help. Do-young recalls he already tried before and warns that just the two of them will not be enough, no matter how strong they are, but Gio reveals he is not alone in this. Do-hyung is surprised by the information. Gio asks if he has ever heard of Song Hye-in. Do-hyung asks if she is the leader of the mutant team. He knows she is the one even the lab avoids contact with, considered the strongest mutant in history. He does not understand why this monster's name is coming out of Gio's mouth. He asks if she is backing the plan, and Gio confirms, saying he can meet her right now. Do-hyung thinks that if she is the one providing support, maybe it will be possible to convince his friends, especially since Kim Gio was close to all of them. He knows it is madness, but wonders if he can really trust him. Gio simply asks him to believe. The young man sighs, commenting that he appears out of nowhere and turns everything upside down. Then he shakes Gio's hand. He agrees and says they are moving forward, in a completely strange and grim location elsewhere. A man calls for test subject 0032, Lim Na-rin. He says she is the regeneration subject destined to replace him, and he cruelly warns her that no one is coming to save her. In the office, Hye-in notes that he was a test subject just like Gio. She reveals he currently operates Hoden Construction, a company specialized in foundations and underground works, all done to support the lab, and she asks if she is right so far. Do-hyung acknowledges she knows a lot and concludes she must have been investigating him from the start. She confirms he was on the suspect list for a while, and they already knew about the fake identity, connected to the lab just like Gio. Do-hyung states he cannot find this amusing, and that it is not right for the police to use a friend as bait. He warns that she is crossing a dangerous line. The girl laughs and jokes that he is quite cute when angry, looking like a porcupine. Do-hyung gets even more annoyed and asks what she just said. Gio watches and thinks the guy's heart is beating so hard, he does not even need a special ability to notice his fear. Do-hyung admits to himself that he is terrified. Because he is face to face with the leader of the mutant team, someone even the lab is afraid to confront. It is as if she is reading his mind. She mentions hearing that he also plans to attack the laboratory. Do-hyung asks her not to judge him harshly, because ultimately they are all targeting the same enemy. Trusting the police is difficult because they can easily use and discard him. She asks what he thinks if she promises not to do that. She assures him that she is much warmer than he imagines. Do-hyung replies that talk is cheap, and she has given him no reason to trust her. Hye-in warns that they are getting nowhere. She suggests that maybe he should go to the same place as Chaewon. She reveals that she sent him to prison recently. She says she tried to find a way to clear his name, but the guy simply refused to listen. She adds that he might as well join his colleague behind bars. Do-hyung gets confused and wonders how Chaewon ended up arrested. The two continue arguing until Do-hyung begs for a chance. Hye-in warns that helping the laboratory is a serious crime. She explains that it equates to aiding a terrorist organization and that she could decide his fate right there. But she offers to overlook his past actions as long as he does not cross the line, all because she also wants to destroy the laboratory. Do-hyung promises to help her. Hye-in decides to focus on business and asks for the most useful information he has at the moment. He replies that a friend of theirs needs to be rescued right away and that her ability is highly useful. The girl in the photo is Lim Na-rin. He asks if Gio remembers her. Gio answers that she was a cheerful and kind girl, but Do-hyung counters by stating she was quiet and cold. Their opinions begin to clash. Do-hyung asks what Gio is talking about because Lim Na-rin has always been gloomy, but Gio insists otherwise. He recalls that she used to hug him from behind and ask what he needed, and that they should all play together. Gio remembers telling her that he was hurt. He said his skin was still regenerating and that it must be disgusting, but the girl replied that she liked him anyway. She said that seeing the wound heal made her happy and that she loved it. Do-hyung asks in shock if that rude brat really said that, and this makes everything even more perfect. Hye-in comments that convincing the girl should be easy since she was close to Gio. She says it would be great to rescue at least one more friend from the clutches of the laboratory. Looking at the data, the operation seems quite simple. The vehicles will pass through Silver White Road. The idea is to wait along the route and ambush the trucks, and that is how they will manage to rescue Lim Na-rin. Do-hyung warns that the laboratory might find out if he moves and asks about their protection. Hye-in explains that this is the exact time the police need to block the neighboring roads. She adds that they will cut communications for a while and prevent the arrival of reinforcements. Do-hyung thinks that having police support and a high-ranking officer on their side is very convenient, so he understands the plan and agrees to help. Later they arrive at the agreed road. The two lie in wait behind the mountain. Do-young asks again if Lim Na-rin was not a complete psychopath. He says she committed all sorts of wicked acts, but Gio saw that as kindness. Do-young claims she is completely insane no matter how you look at it. He recalls that normally the laboratory would discard someone with a useless ability, but they put up with the girl. Then he asks another question. He wants to know how Chaewon ended up in prison. Gio answers that his criminal record was too extensive for the police to overlook. Do-young notes that rumors say he did all sorts of heavy stuff, so it is no surprise he got busted. He reflects that in recent years without Gio around, a lot has completely changed. A lot happens while he is away, and hearing about him is also a huge surprise. He believes the guy is still alive only because he assumes his heart just has a simple regeneration ability. Gio mentions he also has no idea he would recover this much, adding that his regeneration was quite slow when he was young. Do-young states it is good to see him doing well, especially since he lost touch with most of his friends. He remembers the mutant stun guns and capture tools, along with the sounds of his friends being dragged away. He still remembers everything perfectly, and just hearing the word laboratory makes his body react on its own. He becomes completely terrified, reacting just like the famous conditioned dog of Pavlov. Even now, he feels like he is going to spiral out of control. He then asks if his friend is not afraid of the laboratory. Gio remains silent for a few seconds, but he soon admits that he is also terrified. The problem is that he lost someone right in front of his own eyes. Losing a friend hurts much more than having his own body torn apart. That is why he plans to tear that laboratory out by the roots. He has already felt enough fear, and now he is tired of running. The time has come to erase those people from history. This time, he promises to become the ultimate nightmare for the laboratory. Meanwhile, Hien tracks the cargo from afar using binoculars. She reports that the targets have passed and that they can now block the road. The secretary gives the orders immediately and activates the signal jammer. Do-hyung announces that his group is also ready. Hien reviews the plan, stating they will keep communication to a minimum because they cannot risk being detected by those bastards. Everyone there is counting on the command of Kim Gio. The young man takes a massive leap and heads straight into the action. The truck driver is left completely confused by the scene. He wonders what is falling right in front of him. From afar, Do-hyung tells himself that he will also overcome his own fear. In that instant, he uses his power to mold the stones on the ground. The driver immediately questions if that guy is a heart mutant, but suddenly, all the cars come face to face with a massive wall of rocks, leaving no way out for the vehicles to escape. They end up crashing their cars straight into the wall. Do-hyung notes that the metal is incredibly resistant. Not a single scratch remains on the transport vehicle after the brutal crash. The driver gets on the radio and reports that they are under attack. He screams for the guards to protect the test subject's transport vehicle and to stop anyone from opening the doors. They absolutely cannot let the invaders take the mutant inside. That is when Gio lands heavily on the roof, stating that it is already too late. The driver goes into shock upon hearing that voice. The other guards scream in desperation to lock the doors tight, but the protagonist calmly states that this is not necessary at all. He simply starts bashing the iron door of the vehicle with a jagged rock. The impact is so brutal that his fingers are completely shattered. The terrified guards wonder how that lunatic managed to tear through heavy armor using only his bare hands. Soon, the protagonist shoves both hands into the hole he just created. He uses all his brute force to rip the metal wide open at once. Inside, something specific catches his attention. The coat belonging to Lim Na-rin is tossed aside inside. Suddenly, several armored soldiers start walking toward the truck. They have clear orders to eliminate the invader on the spot. Gio announces he found the girl and they will end this in 5 minutes. Do-hyung presses his hands against the ground with even more force. He creates stone barriers and traps the soldiers, crushing them right on the spot. A few try to flee. They fire relentlessly as they try to analyze the abilities of their targets. Do-hyung is struck by a bullet, but the shooters quickly confirm his hardened skin. Since the ability of Gio remains a mystery, the soldiers shift their focus to him, and they decide to open fire all at once. Gio dodges the gunfire and hides among the vehicles. Then he starts running in the opposite direction. The soldiers shout that the enemy is closing in with the help of the stone mutant. Gio lands a direct hit on a soldier, sinking the glasses deep into his face. He repeats this brutal assault a few more times. The soldiers are thrown back, until a shot lands right in the head of Gio, and they repeat this on his chest and legs. His body is riddled with holes, but he immediately starts to regenerate. He moves fast and strikes one of the agents, sending the man flying before attacking the others. Suddenly, an impact knocks him backward. Several electric harpoons pierce and trap his body. Do-hyung remarks that the weapon is terrifying. In the past, he never cared much about those shock weapons because they could not pierce his wall. But one of the harpoons shoots straight toward him. The electrical system activates, electrocuting Do-hyung instantly. His defensive wall begins to crumble. Back in the present, he raises the stones once more, thinking that his body still remembers that pain. He knows that if he gets electrocuted, he will not be able to use his powers, and he will be left completely defenseless in the fight. Except this time, he evades the harpoons. He curses himself, and he realizes he does not need to fear these weapons or dwell on the past. After all, the weapons are useless if the generators are destroyed, until an attack hits him hard in the side. He falls and rolls backward. The agents aim at him him with explosive ammunition, and they open fire without mercy. Do-hyung covers his face with his hands, and he defends himself from several shots using the rocks, but the harpoons push through the crossfire, and they snare his arm. Do-hyung thinks he is caught for good. His double layer of rock is pierced in one exact spot, but Geo grabs the wires before they can hurt his friend and takes the entire electrical discharge in his place. The soldiers are stunned to see that the regenerating mutant can easily withstand the electrical current. The men decide to keep the power on until they bring him down for good. They crank it to maximum voltage, but soon they notice a terrifying detail. Geo pulls the power cables toward himself. He manages to drag each of the officers along and throws the men away with pure brute force. One of them can't understand how the boy withstands a shock that would kill anyone. Geo complains that it really hurts and warns that they shouldn't use something like that on people. The officer asks where he came from and what he wants. The protagonist answers that he is looking for a friend. The soldier finds the story strange. He says he doesn't know who the boy is looking for, but warns that he picked the wrong fight. The protagonist doesn't waste time, he charges in and finishes the guy. After the fight, Do-hyung suggests tying the officers up. However, the protagonist warns that they don't have time for that. Do-hyung thinks that since they already rescued the girl, they have plenty of time, but he gets a huge scare when he opens the cargo. He sees that the girl isn't inside, and they end up freeing an unknown man. Geo makes it clear that they need to find the girl. He rips off the driver's door with sheer brute force, all this to find out where she is hidden. The driver begs not to die. The protagonist says he knows where she is, and orders him to speak up about the girl who was going to be transported. The intel said she was going to pass through that route, but the men swapped the test subject. Time is running out, so the driver has to speak fast. Geo just wants to know where the girl ended up. She is locked in the temporary mutant detention center. Inside, a scientist reports that the girl is unconscious, but her vital signs are stable. Her pupillary response is weak, and she barely feels any pain. But suddenly a spike starts growing on her body, and it narrowly misses impaling the scientist. Another guy tells him not to let his guard down and warns that even knocked out her body still reacts. She doesn't know what she's doing, but her defense instinct remains active. The guy comments that the speed of the spike creation is actually good, but he makes it clear that he isn't after spikes. He grabs the girl's face and says that what he truly wants is her rapid healing. Her healing isn't as strong as the protagonist's, but it's enough for the experiments. The only rule is not to let the girl die because the results are only valid if she is alive. Right then, one of the scientists calls the director and warns that there's a problem. The first transport team was attacked on the street. The director doesn't understand how they discovered their route. This ruins the plans, and he decides to delay the second team's departure. He announces that everyone is heading back to the lab. Suddenly, all the scientists look up at the ceiling in fear. A giant rock strikes the door of the facility, destroying everything in its path. Geo announces over the radio that he found the temporary base and that the rescue starts now. The doctor immediately realizes that 2 mutants have just invaded their base. The doctor demands to know how they have the nerve to be so reckless. A police officer reports that she is being transferred by Team 2. Do-hyung demands that he hand over the schedule. The man hands over the papers completely intimidated. He says he knows nothing about the mission and was just following transfer orders. Jin says that the person in charge of the case is Supervisor Han Ki-cheol. Back at the lab, the police advance after the intruders. They start shooting at Jin and Do-hyung's hiding spot. Jin says he never expected to see Han Ki-cheol in charge since he used to be just a low-level researcher. Do-hyung admits he had no idea he had climbed the ranks so high. This likely happened because of the incident 3 years ago where several friends were dragged back. Because of this, they decide to split up right there. The enemy's ability is focused on immobilization and capture, and staying together will only slow them down. Jin announces he will rescue Lim Na-rin, while Do-hyung draws everyone's attention. Do-hyung gets annoyed and replies that he understands the logic, but it still hurts a bit. Jin reminds him that he prepared for hell when he decided to come here. He states that rescuing Lim Na-rin is the priority, and offers to swap roles if he disagrees. Do-hyung touches the ground and activates his power, telling his partner to stop talking nonsense. In that instant, several stone fists erupt from the ground. He explains that they both know very well he is better at drawing attention, and tells Jin to go ahead. He tells Jin not to worry about this place. The police officers turn to Do-hyung with their weapons drawn. They decide to open fire with everything they have. One of the shots hits Do-hyung right in the forehead. He defends himself using stone and creates a rocky armor over his own fist. He charges forward and announces that this tight space is perfect for his power. The impact sends the police officers flying away. One of the guards shouts that he is a high-risk mutant with rock abilities. They quickly start preparing their ammunition. The officer gives the order to respond with high-caliber weapons. Suddenly, a chain flies toward them. The chain strikes Do-hyung's fist dead on as a voice orders everyone to cease fire. Han Ki-cheol appears and states that they cannot go around taking the life of such a precious test subject. He points out that this is Subject 72, who can manipulate rocks. He calls Do-hyung by his name as the young man realizes his mask is gone. Han Ki-cheol mentions that after Do-hyung escaped and was caught 3 years ago, he swore loyalty to the lab. The supervisor declares that he betrayed them again and truly has no salvation. In the past, the supervisor tortured Do-hyung by squeezing his body with several chains. The boy screamed endlessly, begging to be spared. Han Ki-cheol notes that the boy's stone armor crumbled on its own out of fear and not from any external impact. He He says Do-hyung has a useful ability, but cannot even use it because he is terrified. Even so, he had the audacity to escape. The supervisor concludes that he was only dragged along by the other test subjects because he was too weak to make a decision like that on his own. Ultimately, he warns that the boy will work solely for the lab from now on, and that is the only way he will be spared. Back in the present, Han Ki-cheol taunts him, saying that a coward like Do-hyung would never have the courage to betray the lab on his own. Do-hyung reinforces his stone fist and retorts that no one forced him to do anything. He states that he came on his own 2 feet and uses the chain to pull Han Ki-cheol with all his strength. The supervisor is slightly caught off guard by this attitude. Immediately after, the man unleashes even more chains. He climbs onto the chains and remarks that Do-hyung only tagged along for the invasion because he was terrified of being left behind again. Do-hyung tenses up completely when he realizes his attack was blocked. The police push the generator one more time. They start firing their stun guns to try and contain the boy. Do-hyung quickly notices the shots and tries to dodge. He sprints backward and thinks the guy is an arrogant bastard. The officers keep shooting and order his escape route blocked. Han Ki-cheol throws his spiked ball. The weapon closes in fast on Do-hyung as he thinks that this bastard always targets his deepest insecurities. He just waits for the exact moment the body of the boy freezes in fear. Then Do-hyung raises a wall of rocks. He remembers that just moments ago he had almost collapsed completely, but the chains wrap around the stone, and they bind the young man once again. Han Ki-cheol asks if he thought a little rebellion would change anything. He says the fear of the boy has not vanished, and he just has not been beaten enough yet. He warns that if the boy learned the wrong lesson, he can very well teach him everything from scratch, and that this time, he will make sure his body remembers first. He flashes a wicked smile. Do-hyung grabs the wall and tears off a piece. He says the guy is right and that even now he just wants to run away. But he remembers that he already ran away and survived once before, when he turned his back on his friends and did absolutely nothing. His stone heart begins to react with the new rock. The bricks shatter the chain as Do-hyung says that whole situation was suffocating, and that is why he will not run away anymore. Han Ki-cheol asks if he swallowed the bricks to gain control over them, just to create the structure he wanted. Do-hyung charges forward with a giant fist. He says that even a coward wants to save his friends as much as anyone else. The police and soldiers are sent flying away from the impact. They skid across the ground and drop their weapons. Do-hyung finishes the strike and breathes heavily. The damage caused by the impact is massive. Han Ki-cheol remains completely unharmed and says he used the bricks to scatter shrapnel everywhere, but ultimately caused no damage. He mocks him and says it was so slow it almost made him yawn. Then he asks if the boy thinks he is an idiot. He states that the plan is obvious and the other guy slipped away trying to get Lim Na-rin, and he warns that he already sent a squad after him. Right after that, Do-hyung collapses to the ground. The officers approach to capture him, but the radio calls the director and warns that the internal security team was completely annihilated. Han Ki-cheol stands there confused. The guy on the radio reports that the intruder inside is also a high-risk mutant. Han Ki-cheol tries to process the information. He looks over and sees a smile on the face of Do-hyung collapsed on the ground, and he realizes that the boy was the real distraction the entire time. He orders the officers to take care of Do-hyung because he will go after Lim Na-rin himself. In the other area, Geo breaks the chains. He asks her to wake up and says he is there to rescue her. Lim Na-rin looks at him completely confused, but the boy offers a sincere smile until chains shoot straight out of the hands of the director. They wrap around the neck of Geo immediately after. Han Ki-cheol imprisons him completely. He says today is his lucky day because 2 valuable test subjects just fell into his hands. Then he demands to know how the guy dares to infiltrate his lab like a rat. Geo looks back thinking about Han Ki-cheol. He wonders if 3 years have passed already. The touch of the chains brings back that cold and suffocating grip. Han Ki-cheol says he was trash who wastes money. He says it does not matter how much they train the soldiers to deal with mutants because they remain useless. So he wants to know who he is to annihilate a force of that size. And he asks if it is another test subject who betrayed them like Do-hyung. Geo does not answer and just holds the chains. Han Ki-cheol asks what is wrong with him and if he cannot speak. He thinks the guy froze in fear, while Geo merely looks at him coldly. In the past, he hides in the closet out of fear. Then Han Ki-cheol appears offering a lollipop, and he asks why he is hiding again. He says he must not be afraid because he needs to help his friends. Geo questions this somewhat fearfully. Han Ki-cheol promises that the other children will not go through the experiments if he holds on a little longer. The boy asks if he promises, and Han Ki-cheol guarantees it. The instrument table gets covered in blood, with the lollipop thrown on the floor. Han Ki-cheol analyzes the results and says his friends will be grateful. Geo realizes that everything begins again with him using his friends as bait, only to conduct those terrible experiments later. Han Ki-cheol announces that the next test is the tensile strength of the chains, and he tightens everything while the boy screams. He binds the hands and even the fingers of Geo. This is how he breaks the neck of Geo. He notes that it takes 3 seconds to fracture and that this is disappointing, so he controls the intensity of the impact. Another chain heads straight toward him, striking the body of Geo several times. The chains move fast and trap his arm. Geo only thinks that he prefers to lose his life, so he can take the life of that bastard. bastard, but he knows he needs to endure it for his friends. Han Ki-cheol taps his pen and gets a scare. He sees the tip of the chain changing shape. He wants to know how this is possible since the chains are fixed abilities. Then he starts to fixate on the power structure, wondering if the ability breaks its limits and changes shape. He shoots rapidly at the boy, remembering a research paper that says using the heart repeatedly improves power evolution. He thinks that if he can transform the chains into other things, the possibilities will be endless. Thus, he continues to hurt Geo in every way possible, until Han Ki-cheol begins to cry with emotion. He thanks Kim Geo for this. He says that thanks to the boy, he can take a step forward, while Geo only thinks about how he always uses his body to invent new forms of pain. Then he holds firmly onto the chains around his neck. Han Ki-cheol notes that his traits point to a regeneration mutant, but he finds it strange because even a regeneration mutant would try to resist first. Only the boy remains completely frozen. It is not the bindings holding him back, and the moment his body recognizes him, he simply gives up fighting back. That is no normal reaction toward a complete stranger. He demands to know if he has run experiments on him before. Geo seizes the opening and lunges forward. He lands a brutal straight punch right on the researcher's face. Han Ki-cheol is left completely bewildered as the chains shatter. He is sent flying backward from the sheer impact. He tumbles across the ground, spiraling out of control, until his back slams dead into a wall. He collapses on the floor, gasping hard for air. He desperately tries to process what just happened. The boy was definitely bound in his chains right up until the moment he strikes again. Han Ki-cheol is sent flying once more. He tells himself this is impossible. Even for a physical strength mutant, the chains are forged from steel and do not just break from brute force. Then he catches a crucial detail. The chains are violently twisted. He wonders if the bastard did this on purpose. Geo states that chains hold up well against direct pulls, but fail against lateral force. He explains that concentrating all power on a single link makes it snap first. While the researcher was testing every vile method on his flesh, Geo was also learning every detail about his enemy. Han Ki-cheol grinds his teeth in sheer fury. He conjures more chains right out of his own hands. He hurls everything at the boy and warns him not to get cocky just because he broke a few weapons. The chains surge straight for Geo, but he does not even flinch. Han Ki-cheol suddenly reverses the trajectory of the strikes. He shapes the chains into heavy iron balls and sends them crashing down on him. Geo sprints forward with explosive speed. He flawlessly evades every chain in his path, until one of them whips out and clips his ankle. He instantly snaps his gaze downward. Han Ki-cheol mocks the trick of twisting and breaking the chains, but points out that the game changes when they strike from all sides, whether they come from the flanks, from behind, or even sweeping under his feet. He declares there is nowhere left to run, and tells the boy he is nothing special just for snapping two links. As the weapons close in, Geo flashes back to the time when he was nothing but a skeleton. He ducks his head and dodges on pure reflex. He propels himself up to dodge a lethal strike from behind, and lands completely ready for the next clash. Han Ki-cheol stares at him in utter disbelief, but Geo reflects that he did not just break a single pair of chains. He remembers the countless chains tearing into his body in the past. All that torment taught him exactly how his enemy moves his weapons and where he leaves gaps in his defense. He remembers every single pattern and snatches a chain right out of midair. Han Ki-cheol freezes in absolute shock. Geo pulls the chain with brutal force. He lets the scientist get close using the momentum. Geo explains he knows how to handle it because he drove those very chains straight into his own body. In response, he slams the scientist face first into the floor. Geo unleashes all his rage into the blows. Han Ki-cheol defends himself using a cluster of chains. He cannot understand how a mutant focused on regeneration possesses such massive strength. Blood splatters from between the scientist and his teeth. Han Ki-cheol jumps back on pure instinct. He says Geo dodges everything and still manages to counterattack. The scientist concludes the boy was definitely one of his former test subjects. Han Ki-cheol asks if he came all this way for revenge or to save his captured friends. He finds the situation amusing and says the boy looks like a discarded test subject. The scientist mentions it is quite rare to see a piece of trash grow so much and become research material once again. He warns he is going to experiment on the boy one more time. Han Ki-cheol asks if the boy thinks he knows everything about him. He says the kid is completely mistaken. The scientist explains he never shows the real data during tests precisely to avoid being stabbed in the back. Han Ki-cheol claims the boy only knows a fraction of what he can do. He throws a saw and says Geo chose the wrong guy to mess with. Geo replies that the faster the saw spins, the easier it is to predict its movement due to centrifugal force. The boy lands a direct punch straight into the scientist and his stomach. The blow makes Han Ki-cheol spit up a massive amount of blood. The scientist tries to comprehend how the kid knows the weak point of those chains. He uses his own chains to absorb the impact and avoid flying backward. Han Ki-cheol had never shown that trick to anyone before. He keeps wondering where the boy got this information. The scientist screams that it was pure luck and will not happen again. Han Ki-cheol launches multiple chains at once in his direction. Geo analyzes the path of each chain in a split second. The boy evades every attack without effort. Geo states the scientist can only change the direction of the attack if the target is within 2 meters. Han Ki-cheol is left speechless and completely bewildered. He wonders how the kid knows yet another secret. In that instant, Geo charges at him with everything he has. The boy lands another heavy punch straight to the scientist in his face. Han Ki-cheol tries to dig through his memory to figure out who this boy actually is. He fails to grasp how a test subject has access to such precise data. The scientist always kept everything in absolute secrecy to avoid this exact situation. He also cannot recall testing anyone with the appearance of that kid. Han Ki-cheol thinks of a regeneration mutant who witnessed all his experiments up close. The image of that small skeleton flashes into the scientist and his mind. Right after that, Geo crushes his body against the floor. Han Ki-cheol lets out a scream of agony upon impact. The entire floor shatters beneath the scientist and his back. Geo pulls his arm back and retreats in the blink of an eye. The boy dodges all the chains trying to catch him on the rebound. He creates distance with perfect and calculated movements. Han Ki-cheol says the boy knows the limits of every chain and even the weak points of the equipment. The scientist realizes no one learns this just by reading stolen documents and understands that the one standing before him is the exact same test subject who survived all the tests. He concludes that it can only be Kim Geo himself. Geo confirms that it is really him. The scientist notes that he is not just immortal, but that his regeneration has never been this fast. He wants to know what happened to the test subject. Geo answers that it is a long story, and that he can tell everything when the guy is in prison. But the scientist starts laughing endlessly. Geo asks what is so funny. The man warns that he cannot hold himself back. He spent a lot of time trying to find this immortal body. And yet Geo came to him on his own, and now he understands why someone like this was so interesting. The old laboratory directors wanted him badly. Geo asks about the older directors. The scientist explains that they were the ones who brought the test subject. But he does not know where they are and does not care about that. After all, that does not matter right now. What matters is that his test subject has returned stronger than ever. He wraps the chains around a pipe and admits that he is no longer the same as before. Ordinary chains will not be enough this time. The next experiment will be something unprecedented. And he states that it is good to see Geo again. He crushes a piece of iron and thinks that if he forces the ingestion, the strength multiplies and the blood coagulates. He will not be able to use chains for a few minutes in exchange for more power. Geo realizes that the enemy is trying to use the full force of the chains and knows he needs to get away. But the scientist advances very fast towards him. He is sure that Geo will be finished before he escapes. The chains attach to the pillars of the place. They cut a part of the face of Geo. The scientist warns that he created an instant laboratory custom made for him, and warns that Geo thought he knew him well, but the researcher also knows much more about the test subject than it seems. Geo tries to move his fist, but the enemy controls the chains and pulls him back. He explains that he locked the muscles of Geo. The chains will cut his body right at the moment of regeneration. This causes direct damage to his bones. He claims that this is the limit of Kim Geo. No matter the strength he gained, the relationship between them has not changed at all. Geo continues to be the test subject, and he is the researcher. It is useless to fight because his heart only makes him immortal. It does not matter if the regeneration is so fast. The resistance of the body does not last forever. Dozens of chains will destroy his body little by little. Trapped there, he can only do one thing. He can only regenerate endlessly and nothing else. This is the weakness of the heart of Geo. But Geo grabs the chain with great strength. Suddenly all the others stop moving. The scientist finds the situation strange right away. He tries to understand how Geo found the main chain. Geo stares coldly at him. He remembers writing on the board that moving thousands of chains one by one was impossible. The main chain is not meant for attacking, and if it swings, the rhythm of all the others breaks. He realizes that was why the guy needed a support chain. Geo repeats this in his head. He warns that he waited for exactly this moment, and then he pulls the chain with brutal force. He says that as soon as he stops the main chain with his hands, the others fall. Han Ki-cheol fails to understand how he did that. All the chains stop moving. The director says he can create more chains. He points his hand at Geo, but the chains do not come out. Geo calls out the name of Han Ki-cheol. He says that in the past he could not do anything. He could only endure everything in silence. But now he gathers all the blood around him. His heart beats in the same rhythm as his power. Han Ki-cheol tries to deny what he is seeing. He runs backward trying to dodge. He shouts that Geo is just a test subject, but Geo punches him in the ribs. He warns that he is not a test subject, and that the director is just a random researcher. Han Ki-cheol spits a massive amount of blood from the strike. He flies back from the heavy impact. Geo says that now he will destroy all the laboratories. He prepares another punch, and he strikes the back of the director's neck. Han Ki-cheol groans in pain, but Geo keeps hitting him without stopping and without mercy, just like he suffered in the past. He grabs Han Ki-cheol by the hair. The director smiles and tells him to hit more. He says that this will not change anything. He knows Geo will not finish him off, and that if his goal is Lim Narin, he should have broken his spine right now. The director doctor says that if he dies, Gio will never find his friends. That is why he cannot end his life. He warns that the transport was delayed by 30 minutes, and since communication is down, the army will arrive soon. Then he calls out to Gio again. He says that if Gio is angry, he can hit him as much as he wants for 10 minutes. But Gio lands a direct punch to his mouth. He pulls the blood flowing from the director's mouth. Han Ki-cheol cannot understand what is happening. He tells Gio to stop, while Gio stares at him coldly. Gio comments on his heartbeat. He says the guy tries to look calm, but his heart shows the truth. When Gio takes the blood, he can feel the rhythm of the heart, and he instantly discovers if the person is lying. Gio explains that half of what he said was a lie, since the part about the army arriving soon was true. But it was a lie that he would not get the information about his friends if the director died. His heartbeat says it all. Han Ki-cheol starts laughing. He warns him not to bluff and says his ability does not do that, because his heart merely regenerates. But the protagonist grabs his collar, ripping off a piece of his badge right after. He points out that the man is terrified right now. Terrified that he would find the memory card hidden inside the researcher badge, the card that holds all the research data. Han Ki-cheol tries to take it back but takes a heavy blow. He is thrown away with brutal ease. The man gets up even angrier. He charges again and yells that no one can touch that. Gio keeps beating him relentlessly. He finishes with a heavy punch, which injures the researcher even more. Gio says he remembers him stating that all the data was in the badge and that it was the most precious thing in his life. His heartbeat proves it. Han Ki-cheol knows he is screwed if he loses that. He reminds himself he cannot let that happen. He remembers when he was a child in the lab. A voice states that his parents lost their lives in an accident. His ability manifested, but it was extremely weak, and his control was terrible. That is why he was classified as rank F. The order was simply to remove his heart and send it to the materials room. Everyone starts talking about it and the boy gets scared. Han Ki-cheol begs them to wait because he can be useful. He says he is good at analyzing things and can help with the data. The doctor asks if he has anything else to show. Han Ki-cheol hands over a document and says he analyzed the abilities of all the other children, even those who tried to hide their powers. He explains that the heart of one boy lets him move small pieces of metal, and that the heart of a girl can corrode walls, and they were planning to escape in secret. One of the children headbutts him. The boy runs toward him and says they promise to run away together, but the doctor strikes everyone down and steps forward. The children fall to the ground in that instant. The doctor asks again if he is good at analysis. He notes that there is a lot of useless information there, but the idea was quite clever for a child, so he decides to take him to test if he is actually useful. He warns that the boy must prove his worth immediately. Back in the present, Gio mentions he heard other researchers talking about his past. He says the researcher was also thrown into the lab just like everyone else. Han Ki-cheol screams and curses him for knowing his past. Then the protagonist starts breaking the memory card right in front of him. The researcher falls to his knees and says he will give him anything he wants. Gio orders him to write down the location of the other children and the list of captives along with the transport routes. Han Ki-cheol agrees instantly and grabs a pen. Gio commands him to speak out loud while writing because he will listen to his heart, and the man starts to obey. The researcher just thinks that reinforcements will arrive soon, and he only needs to stall until then. He decides to write as fast as he can, but the protagonist tells him not to build false hope. Backup is not coming because the police have blocked all roads, and he is trapped there until everything is over. Han Ki-cheol starts shaking instantly. He wonders if they will steal all his data. Gio has no intention of letting the guy walk away and only wants to destroy everything he has. At this point, the lab itself will also discard him. Nothing else matters, and the files on the memory card are the only thing of value now. If he manages to escape with it, he will survive without going to jail. So he decides to release the chains very slowly so no one notices. But multiple thorns strike the chain right after. Gio looks to the side instantly. Han Ki-cheol is left badly wounded, and Lim Na-rin says her head is hurting. She wants to know what the bastard put in the water. Han Ki-cheol thinks he gave her sleeping pills, but she is already awake and he realizes he needs to run now, or he will never get another chance. But his arms are also pierced. She warns him that he needs to pay for everything he has done. She says he has no idea how much anger she feels seeing his face, and that any memory makes her furious. Gio looks at her in surprise. Meanwhile, the girl continues to control the thorns, and she pierces his eye without mercy. She tells him to put some clothes on while doing his research. The doctor is riddled with holes from head to toe. She mentions that the whole situation is irritating. Gio grabs her arm right after, but the girl's thorns fly straight at him. He dodges by moving his head. Meanwhile, she asks who had the nerve to interfere. The protagonist asks her not to kill the guy because he has a lot of good information they can use. The girl looks at him a bit suspiciously, but she says she almost made a mistake in front of the person who saved her life. She explains she had no intention of killing the doctor anyway. Then she asks if his name is Kim Gio. She says she has a friend with that name who has a healing ability, and Gio confirms it is really him. The girl does not understand how the guy in the skull mask can be him, because the friend she knows is terrified of Han Ki-cheol. She calls him a liar for trying to trick her like that. Gio swears he is not lying, and confesses that in the past he really was weak and immature. He insists he is actually Gio and calls the girl by her name. Elsewhere, Hyane starts listening to the reports, and Gio also gets on the line to report the situation. He tests to see if the radio works, and Hyane tells him to speak normally. He says he secured Han Ki-cheol and got the data for all the children. Hyane says this is great and that they will clear the road right after. She also asks about Lim Na-rin. Gio confirms he managed to rescue her too, but he warns that there is a slight problem now. The girl simply refuses to leave his side.